So the One Warriors, they've
One
got
Warriors.
just looking at the hello. Okay, sorry. They've got 9 Friday night games, 9 Saturday night games. They play the Bulldogs, Cowboys, Dolphins, Dragons, Knights, Raiders, Roosters, and Sharks twice. Big ins: Mitch Barnett, Jackson Ford from St George, Valingi Kepu, Tamari Martin from the Bulldogs, Luke Metcalf, Chance Nickel Clockstar from the Canberra Raiders, Murata Niokore from Parramatta, Dylan Walker, Braden Valami. They've lost Ewan Aitken, Dessen Arcee, Leighton Finu, Jackson Frey, Elise Katoa to Melbourne, Matthew Lodge, Dynamis Louis, Jack Murchie, Ben Murdoch, Masilla, Cody Nikarima, Aaron Penne, Pride Patterson Rabadi, Junior Ratuva, Ash Taylor, and Reece Walsh has gone back to Brisbane. And over the off-season, they've extended Curran, Egan, Fanua Blake, Lussick, and Valia at least to 2024. A new coach, Andrew Webster, who comes through the Penrith system the Tigers via Penrith to get here, I guess. But spoke pretty impressively the couple of games he was running Penrith.
Yeah, and he's been an assistant for a long time. I think he's got somewhere near a decade worth of experience being an assistant in and around the traps and some of the better clubs, and obviously having a big hand in running a first grade club for 10 years. So there's definitely got the runs on the board. So it'd be interesting to see how he kicks them off for the start of the year.
So where do you want to start, Bun? Run through what you.
My expected 17. I think Chance will play fullback. Yep. I don't see why he wouldn't. He was on the outer at the Raiders and they pushed him out, but I'm pretty sure he's the best fit at number 1 here. Dallin to play on the wing with Kossi on the other wing. I can't see anybody else sort of. There's a lot of potential in Kossi, in my opinion, and I think he should probably start. I've got Pompey and Berry would probably be the 2 centres that I would pick, but I've got a feeling that they may play Valia in front of Pompey.
I had Valia in there for that, but yeah.
T. Marie Martin, I think, will start the year at 6. There's a little bit of pressure behind him.
I think he's Webster's on record as saying, Martin at 6.
I think he's a bit more of an all-round game. His kicking game is a little bit better than someone like your Metcalfs and Volkman's more of a 7, I think. So he's probably waiting for somebody to fall over to find a spot. Sean Johnson's definitely going to be your 7, and I dare say he'd probably be their. Harris will be their captain, but Fanua Blake in the 8 with I think Bunty Afoa probably starts for the Warriors in the front row. Wade Egan will definitely be the hooker, and I dare say they'll be looking to get 80 minutes out of him most weeks, to be honest.
Poor bloke.
Tavanga might jump in there at different times, but Tohu, Harris and Barnett, which is actually quite a good back row combination and should add something to this team. I'd be going with Curran to start the game.
Yep. He's under
lock.
Is he under a no-fault stand-down at the moment? Was there an issue in the off-season? Or?
Did it get resolved? I know there was an issue, but did it get
out to start with in my head? But sorry.
But if it's not him, it'll be Tavanga, and obviously either one of those will be on the bench, and one will be starting at 13. I think Dylan Walker adds a bit of spark in there as an option as a ball player in 14. Curran and Tavanga, as I said, Niokore should sew up a spot on the bench, and the last spot on the bench I'm not 100% sure about, but. Back end of last year, I think Tom Ale played quite a few minutes in the last sort of 3 or 4 games of the year, so I expect him to probably start. There's another one there,
Well, at least in your starting lineup, I've only got 2 differences. Mm-hmm. The rest are the same. One, you have Niokore on the bench. I've actually got him in the centres just to shore up the defence a little bit. Okay. He played most of last year there for Parramatta. Mm-hmm. I feel like, and just looking at the Warriors, the signings that they've made, I think there are 2 of them that you can say are genuinely good signings, but the rest of them are pretty much all players who have played very well in the past, but are currently down on their form. Your Barnett's, Nickel Clockstar as well was playing in reserve grade. I think I did have Dylan Walker at 6, but that's
on
fine.
He did come out and say that he won't be playing him as a centre.
No. Yeah, so
the coach actually came out.
I would as well. It's just
Webster's confirmed the spot. Yeah, will be as I said 5 minutes ago. He's also said Walker's going to be treated as a 14, and Tohu Harris will wear 10, but basically play 13.
Well, the reasoning for why I've put what I put as well is I think with Niokore, the thing is with the Warriors, and it was the same last year. their starting forward pack is not horrible because you're at least going to get a big individual effort out of one or two blokes each week, right? So I don't necessarily think you need to use Niokore in your forward pack. I think you can actually... I think he could be more beneficial actually in terms of defence out in the centres. And the other one, I did have Walker as 6, but personally, I do think he probably is a bit better coming off the bench as a 14 as he proved at Manly. I just don't... it's more... I just don't... I personally don't know if Tamari Martin's back up for playing at 5'8", but that I purely made that decision based off of we've not seen Martin there for obviously since before his initial.
They played a little bit at Brisbane last year. He played a couple of games there last year.
I thought he was fine. Yeah.
I thought he was all right at fullback. I thought he sort of he wasn't great, but he sort of did more than I expected of him at fullback. But I'm just. As I said, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the Warriors signings.
The other one he did confirm Niokore will play back row. They just treat him as a back row.
Okay, well again, that it's understandable. They're not shocking options, but
they do have quite a few young centres coming through in the squad, and there's a couple of admissions here that
like Villia,
I've left
Montoya,
out of the You got Villiame,
Jackson Ford.
Metcalf can play centre if he needs to, but it'll probably end up in the. I dare say as a backup to Martin.
See,
that's a big one for me.
I actually had in my team looking at here, I had Metcalf in
starting 6
centre.
Oh, centre.
Okay. Just because the lack of a bit of creativity. I know he's a bit smaller, but they've got good sized backs. He can maybe add a little bit of spark a bit wider, but we'll see.
Well, I think Pompey and Berry are the bigger bodies. They're quite quick as well. They haven't shown their full potential, but I think they'll probably be the ones that they start with. But I think Metcalf's an out-and-out half, and the amount of screaming that the Warriors did to get him released early last year, and now I don't think he's going to even make the 17, which is a bit of a disappointment for the young bloke. But Jackson Ford, one that you mentioned, he's front rower, isn't he? Jackson Ford? Pretty sure he comes from...
back row centre, was he?
Yeah, back rower. But another one that would probably be unlucky to miss out, Sirinen, you also mentioned. The more I think about it, he probably takes a 17 spot with Tom Ale missing out, to be honest, just because he's got a fair bit about him. He's decent defender. He's got
can play dummy half.
He's got an offload as well. Volkman, I mentioned, is another half that they've brought along who's a backup, obviously, in case of injury. But he looks like he's got a really good kicking game and probably wouldn't be the worst option to slot in there at some point.
So,
no, that's it.
So what does this all, like, we've run through the teams.
Yep.
So we're good at reading names off papers, but what does this actually mean for the Warriors? So we saw last year that I think they had the highest points against per game.
Conceded,
we saw at times that the defence would either fall apart from the inside out, you'd see the middle collapse an hour into the game, and that would be that, or outside in sometimes. So they're good at both. And so they were very sloppy. Getting back to New Zealand helped. They do get back to New Zealand. They get some key stuff there. But what does it actually mean for this year?
Oh, they need, if they want to be competitive in most games, they're going to need to dominate on the edges of the ruck. You're going to need your Barnetts and your Tohu Harris and the likes of those guys, Curran and Tavanga, sniffing around and making big inroads on the edges and then feeding the ball to the centres and for them to score points. T. Marie Martin's going to need to control the running game because Sean Johnson doesn't have one anymore, realistically. He very rarely takes on the line anymore, and if there's going to be a running game out of the halves, it's going to have to come from the 6. I think they'll be slightly better defensively in the middle for a little bit longer, just with the likes of Barnett coming into the side, Tohu Harris back, hopefully from the start of the year. Just stiffens up. Niokore is a very good defender as well. It just stiffens up that middle a little bit, but there's still massive question marks on the outside edges of their defence, their wingers and their centres. It was a common thread with most of the teams that finished at the bottom of the comp last year. They struggled very badly once the ball got outside the back rowers, and teams just waltzed over for tries for points in the corner time and time again. And I can see it being a big issue and a reason why the Warriors will struggle to get out of the bottom 4.
I feel like the Warriors are a bottom 4 team as well, but if you look at the Warriors, probably 8 to 13, they have an edge on a lot of the bottom 8 teams, and that is like a solid starting forward pack. The only issue is it seems like, and last year, how many times were we mentioning that a specific Warriors forward had an amazing game, but one that had a great game the week before had sort of dropped off. It just never seemed to all click at once. But if this Warriors forward pack can sort of, as a whole, perform really well against some of the especially the bottom four, but the bottom 8 sides, they shouldn't do. I don't think they're a top 8 team or anything, and we'll get to our ladder predictions later because I don't think this will happen. But if it all sort of clicks and they all come together, then there's a chance they could probably maybe just get out of the bottom 4 or something. I just personally can't see it happening. So the potential is there for something in that forward pack for them to do something, but I just can't see it happening because it hasn't for a few years now.
Yeah, I've got them bottom 4. I think you're right about the forward pack, but I don't mean this in a nasty way, but they're probably 2 best players can be injury prone.
They're 2 injuries away from winning the wooden spoon, realistically.
Yeah. And Sean Johnson, is this realistically his last season?
You would think so.
And he's on one leg half the time as well. He doesn't have the running game he's had for a while. So a big foot shoes for Tamari Martin to fill here because a lot's going to come on him. Chan's, grand final, Chan's fantastic fullback, Kiwi international.
Doesn't have any ball playing though.
We're now well into an era where you need to be a ball playing fullback. He doesn't add that. So realistically, there's 1 point of attack. And Wade Egan, again, good solid player.
He'll
tough
be
first
fine,
grader. He'll be fine, but he's not Harry
Makes
Grant.
breaks out of dummy half, but doesn't put people away.
Well, it's just that Chan's right. You look at him, and we talk about that grand final form from 2019 at Canberra. You look at him coming back to the Warriors now. Does it at least look like on paper what he has around him, can that get that back out of him? I don't think it can. Can the players he's got around him sort of help him to shine and help him get out of this rut? I really do not think so. I think there are other problems that's just going to keep.
The biggest question marks in this team, it's quite simple. The defence outside, the really outside edges is a big worry. The halves are a massive question mark. They could, they'll probably have games where they do look quite good, but it'll only be probably 4 or 5 of them. The rest of the season, I dare say they're going to struggle to score points, especially against the better defensive sides, where they'll just shut them out, and they might be lucky to score 1 or 2 tries in a lot of games. And outside of their 17, I can't see anyone that would force their way into pretty much any other team in the competition. So the depth is a real worry for me.
They feel a lot like they feel a lot like where the Tigers were this time last year, in that throughout the year where you'd watch them play and you'd be going, why aren't they winning this game? And they'll just lose because they didn't have points in them, but they'd have possession, they'd have a forward pack that can match.
Well, that's a great point.
But you just sit there and go, well, this is a good, tough game, and they'll lose 22-10. You go, that made no sense.
I was thinking as well when doing my notes that the Warriors do very much look like the West Tigers side from last year, whereas I brought up the forward pack and how the starting forward pack looks good on paper. You'd say the same about the Tigers probably last year, at least most of their starting pack. It didn't necessarily turn out the way they would have wanted, but that's sort of where that Warriors side seems at the moment. So
there's 2 players I expect to improve, and that's Rocco Berry. I can see a lot coming out of that young fella, and I think another if he gets a full crack at centre this year for the Warriors, I think he'll be much better than what he was last year, and be looking forward to a decent career for the next couple of years. And I think Chance will be the bloke didn't get a go last year.
No.
So if he's not better than what he was last year, there's a problem.
And you were comparing to apples where Reece Walsh didn't set the world on fire last year.
Absolutely didn't.
He had a big second-year syndrome year, and to put in...
I still thought he was one of the Warriors' better players, and that may be more
when they scored
occasionally.
If they scored 12 or 16 points, he'd have a try assist or 2.
Well, that's the thing. At least in attack, he was nearly their only player with any sort of spark about him at times, especially during the middle part of the year.
And I think you'll see just as much out of Chance, to be honest. Just working off the back of back rowers and that loose ball back in the offload and the balls back inside. He's always going to be there in support. So I think he will actually score. Probably be their top try scorer quite handsomely, to be honest. But
anything else you want to finish on for these boys?
Not really. I think we're all sort of in agreement, aren't we? Probably bottom 4.
I think it's going to be a tough year for the Warriors. Yeah.